agree, and we'll get to it because I think it's very interesting because we've talked about on this show. I think Orgeron's candor.
Hey, say candor.
And
that's a good country word.
His openness, his self-awareness is one of his greatest strengths. And so if you're wondering what we're talking about, so Coach O addressed the media yesterday after Competition Tuesday, and there was a very interesting soundbite that came out of it. Now there are other things I want to talk about too, because he got into positions they need to step up, and we now have an idea of the jobs that are really open and that really, I think, are unsettled at this point. I think there's a couple surprising ones in there, but there's probably no more surprising answer than what Coach O had to say when he was talking about learning from last year's mistakes and kind of what went so wrong to create that 5-5 year.
First of all, I think we did a great job at hiring the coaches and doing a great job of interviewing them. I hired some coaches I didn't even interview from the last staff, and I'm never doing that again. I interviewed everybody. We didn't get the first, second. I'll tell you what, we got them on offense. I'm happy with them. I talked to Joe about them. I interviewed them. I told them exactly what I want. They have the answers. They're very smart. I couldn't be more pleased with them. You know, Daronte was like the 4th or 5th choice. Well, so was I. Who cares? He's here. He's doing a tremendous job. Andre Carter, I'm so excited about him. His D-line coach Blake is doing a tremendous job. And DJ and Jake are doing a great job. So I'm very pleased with our offense and very pleased with our defense. And, obviously Coach Mack, I like him. I trust our staff. I said to myself, I'm not going to let things slip by, not one thing. I'm identified, and I told the coaches. They might think nothing's good enough, but I'm going to be hands-on. I'm watching every piece of film. I'm marking it down just like I did in the years before. They're going to have to explain to me what are we doing. I almost cussed there. What are we doing, how are we doing it, and why are we doing it? And they understand that. They say, yes, sir. I got a staff that's going to listen. We got a veteran team coming back. We got 33 guys that have started opposed to the year before. So there's a lot of differences this year. That doesn't mean it's going to make a difference, but I expect to have a good team this year.
So, I mean, that's pretty shocking, right? Hearing that Coach O did not even interview some of the hires last year, hires that ended up going abysmally wrong.
So who are we talking here? Scott Linehan and Bo?
You'd imagine, yes.
Right. So when he says he didn't interview them, I think our listeners are smart enough to know, like, you still vet them and you still have those conversations. You just didn't bring them into the building and have that interview process.
Yeah, you gave them the extreme.
Good.
You gave, it wasn't like, oh, who'd we hire? Okay, cool. No,
right.
like, no. You're aware of the hire, but it was truly a resume hire, right?
Yes. And you felt like you knew Bo because Bo was here. Not saying it was the right situation. I mean, Coach O just said that. I'm never going to do that again.
It's clearly a mistake, right? And it clearly does highlight, I think, something that I've talked about a lot on this show, Jake. I don't know how much we've talked about it because you weren't here during a lot of that, but like, there are challenges that come with success. Just because you finally reach the promised land does not mean the problems end. The problems just morph. And Orgeron has proven time and time and again in his career to be incredible at dealing with adversity and surpassing expectations. What it didn't seem like they were prepared for necessarily was to handle some of the challenges of once you finally reach that ultimate goal. But again, what I think one of his greatest traits is, and why I actually view this type of soundbite as a positive, is because what it does is it speaks to someone who is self-aware enough, honest enough with themselves, that they are not only willing to accept where they screwed up privately, but they're willing to own that publicly. And like, what is more self-assured than saying something like that in public that you know is going to get screwed up? Because in my opinion, like, that sort of honesty with yourself, that's how you create positive change. And I've been on the other side of this. There's been a lot of Les Miles talk lately here on the show, and a lot of it's been off the football field. But what about on the football field? That was a man who refused to change. That was a man who refused to admit that anything that they were doing wrong philosophically in the process was wrong. It's just, the players have to play better, or this has to get better. Like, that was a man who killed himself with his stagnation. That is, nothing could be further from the truth when you're talking about Coach O. And so being willing to own up to that in that public space, and you could say, well, I don't think it's something you say publicly. I think it's something you keep in-house privately. Why? I mean, what if you say public? What? Because people are going to sit here on these shows and we're going to like pick it apart. What does it matter? If that's what you're focusing on, sure, that's kind of, I guess, an interesting public relations angle, but it's not really addressing the core issue, which is you have a coach who is willing to own it and say, look, I completely screwed this up. I've learned that lesson. It will never happen again, and we are changing course, and we're gonna and it'll be positive in the future. Like, again, that is how you affect positive change, in my opinion.
Yeah, and again, like he had, people around the program that were doing kind of the interview process and finding out some of the candidates a year ago, right? And that's what he's saying, like, no, I'm going to do this myself. Like, it's going to go through me. And if it falls, it's going to be on me. Like, I'm going to take responsibility for that. A lot of people were picking apart, when Daronte Jones was hired, Coach O came out and was transparent and said, look, this was the 4th or 5th choice, but who cares? So was I.
Yep.
That's a quote that they're taking apart. Look, in the interview process, there's some places that won't release the names that turn them down because of pride, because of whatever reason, right? So just because you are the 4th or the 5th candidate and you're the person who gets the job, or you're the 4th choice, doesn't make it a bad hire. Nate Oates was like the 8th choice to be the Alabama basketball coach.
Doing pretty well.
They didn't really hide that either, right? Okay, and Nate Oates has Alabama basketball at a place that I've never seen it before. So I understand, like, some people saying, you want it to be more engaged, you want to be more hands-on, you want to make sure you're involved in all those decisions. I understand that part of it as well, but also the transparency of it it doesn't happen everywhere as far as being transparent, but the situations happen.
And this is one of the most ironic things that I've noticed in my years now of, I guess, like a decade of doing this job, is we demand more honesty, or we always crave more honesty, but a lot of times when we get it, we then tear it apart. And I'm not saying that's right or wrong, because whatever. I mean, that's the point, right? You just give your take on whatever is in the news. So I don't think it comes down to a right or wrong issue, but you see why many guys are kind of incentivized to keep these sort of statements in-house. I, for one, appreciate that sort of honesty. And again, I think that candor, I think that willingness to be truly self-critical is his greatest strength, and then by extension becomes one of the staff's greatest strengths. And I think that's how you avoid the disaster of last year. What would have been horrible would have been a doubling down, a sunken cost fallacy. Well, we've already got this guaranteed contract, we got to stick with it, this or that. No, they've avoided all that, learned lessons, completely changed tact, not going to happen again. I actually look at this as a huge positive. Now, obviously, you have to go prove it on the football field. And if somebody's trying to use this to try to invalidate him as a coach or his acumen or his skill, well, what the hell are we talking about, right? I mean, you got a Fiesta Bowl, you got a Natty. That's just the resume speaks for itself. So there's really no defense needed in that regard. Some other changes or some other quotes that I think stood out to me from yesterday. Here's Orgeron 11. This is another kind of, I guess, a lesson learned, a changing of the pace. Coach O saying he's going to be a bit more involved in the defense come this year.
Well, I know that I've coached defense for 40 years, and last year I kind of stood out of it. This year I'm not. If I see something I don't like, we're not doing it. I'm very hands-on. I don't need to be. Daronte is very capable. He knows the back seven. He knows the front seven. He's an excellent coach. But you know what? It's my responsibility. And I'm not letting it go. If there's something our players cannot perform, we're not doing it. I want to keep it simple. I want to keep our cleats in the grass, and I want to play good fundamental defense. And Saturday, the defense got the upper hand. They played very well on defense, and they're doing exactly what we want to do. We had very few missed tackles. We had very few explosive plays. I think we only had 7 in the big scrimmage as opposed to 16 on Thursday. So we'll eliminate explosive plays, eliminate mental errors, and not let people wide open down the field.
Look, and he's not talking about offense. He's talking about defense. As he said, it's a side of the ball that he has coached for multiple decades now. So, I mean, to me, Jake, that sounded like it was clear last year that just the relationship with Pelini was such that there was going to kind of be, like, he must have kind of promised, look, it's going to be your defense, it's going to be hands off, you can run it. And I just think that's a bit of a misstep when it comes to taking advantage of how you came up as a coach, right? It's kind of the same thing with how Saban gets involved with the Alabama defense. And so you combine that with the first-time coordinator Jones, and I think that makes a ton of sense.
And a lot of people were asking when Bo came over. Look, Bo's been a head coach for a long time. He hasn't been a coordinator since he was at LSU in 2007. Is he going to be able to take criticism? Is he going to be able to take advice from not only Coach O, but just coaches? And that was a worry, right? And it sounds like that was the worry actually happened. Like, and he wasn't able, to take feedback from Corey Raymond or Bill Bush or any of the other defensive assistants, and it imploded on LSU. And, sometimes you need to be able to be a coach that you can take advice from here, take it from there. And you're right, Nick Saban, when things aren't going right on the defense, I mean, he is letting Pete Golding know about it on the sideline. So that's not going to be unique to LSU.
Yeah, and so I like this evolution out of the staff. Look, the best you're going to screw things up, and sometimes you're going to screw things up horribly in life. I think the best thing you can do is be honest with yourself. It's the old alcoholic thing where it's like, instead of saying, why did this happen to me, you have to, no matter what the situation, ask, what did I do to cause this to happen to me? And if you can answer that question honestly, you're going to set yourself up to make positive change and create success. And I know a lot of y'all are accusing me of spin job or whatever. Look, I'm giving my critical take on what I'm hearing. Let this football season be the judge, right? You want to side with either side? You think that he is lucky or that it's not going to work? Also, all I'll say is let this fall be the judge, and we'll eventually settle this debate on the field. But I actually feel very good about what I heard yesterday. Shocking, yes, but I just think it speaks to actually positive change in the end. All right, coming up next here on Off the Bench, let's go to our guy, Booger McFarland. Going to check in with Booger Look for the first time in a few weeks. Talk about some of this NFL free agency news next here on OTB.